introduce yourself, what you do in Ava Labs, and then yeah, just lay out a brief introduction of yourself. Our audience would like to hear that.
Sure, sure. So
Yeah,
my background is more from the traditional finance route. So I previously, before joining crypto full time, I was a student, which is always exciting. But I studied finance in college. I then joined Bank of America on their sales and trading desk, specifically covering commodities. So I would work with large institutions and corporates around, crafting and mitigating their commodity risk with the derivatives markets. So a lot of options on crude and natural gas and power is specifically what I covered. I did that for a few years. I enjoyed it, but it was a very old industry. I was been a part of crypto in the background since 2017, and after a few years of kind of being in this traditional role, I decided I wanted to jump in full time into this kind of newer technology. And so I've joined Ava Labs since. I've been here for about 2 years, specifically working on growing the Avalanche blockchain when we were much smaller, and have grown, in the last 2 years and become somewhat of a top five L1. So excited to be talking to you about that growth and kind of where we are today and where we're positioned. At Avalanche, I cover several different verticals. I'm more of a generalist per se, but at a high level, I talk to a lot of enterprises that are looking to build a blockchain. I work with them on crafting their narrative and supporting them as they look to kind of move their technology from Web 2 or traditional finance into a more Web 3 crypto native way. So we'll get on strategy sessions, we'll help with growth and go to market, things like that. So I'm on the BD team here at Avalanche, or Ava Labs, excuse me, and I specifically cover enterprises. That said, my role is broad. As of late, I've been working a ton on our international expansion. So as you know, Ava Labs is a team in the US and a team in Turkey, but we're heavily, in 2023, our strategy is to grow internationally. So we're building up our team in India, our team in Korea, and our team in Japan as well. I was actually just in India not too long ago to figure out, get boots on the ground and see where we can grow and how we can kind of better be a part of that community. And we're looking forward to doing that across the world. But anyway,
awesome.
Great to be here. Great to meet you today. And excited to chat.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Daniel. We're going to discuss with Daniel about the prospect of AVAX and also what they're going to do in 2023, and probably a few questions for Daniel about maybe DeFi and also how the landscape of AVAX among the other protocols. And then, but before all that, I would like to, just as usual, talk about the market. How's Bitcoin doing right now? Let me share my screen real quick. So wait a minute. Yeah. Are you in the trading, Daniel? Not much?
Not too much, no. I do pay attention to market updates, but I don't trade too much, purely because, I'm in the industry. And so it's hard for me to trade as I'm already relatively long crypto in general.
I see. I would love to share some of our insights into how our market's doing now. So Ben will cover the macro updates, and I'm just gonna do a little bit technical analysis on Bitcoin's trend, and also give a few useful indicators that I've been working on. So right now we're now trading at 23K. Base volatility coming ahead tonight. In Hong Kong time and Singapore time. So a few hours later, we'll have the Fed interest rate decision. There will be a lot of volatility to the market, and Ben's will cover that later on. So right now, we have a tremendous ride, right, from 16K. We had a period of accumulation here, and then we expanded all the way up, and we just overcame the previous resistance area, and then we're now trading very nicely at 23K. There will be a nice price action over the last few weeks, I'll say, because we have seen strong momentum. And then same thing goes to Ethereum, right? Because traders are anticipating the Shanghai upgrade, which will be expected to take place in March 2023, and Ethereum is doing very great. We're now trading at 1,500 somewhere around that, and then I think we are now having a little bit of resistance, a little bit of supply coming out at these levels, and whether the market will resume its bullish trend to upwards or we're going to retest and have a pullback later on depends on the Federal Reserve's interest rate later on. So probably gonna pay a lot of attention later on. And let's look at DXY, right? Because that will be one of the metrics that we usually use. Wait a minute, to assess the trend of crypto. So we've been on a decline for almost 2 months, right? And you know, the DXY is very useful for confirming whether the uptrend is healthy or not. But you know, just by watching the DXY dropping doesn't mean that crypto will go up. There are a lot of other factors, but it's useful that to be used as a confirmation. And you know, as we see, DXY is still dropping, and therefore the demand for dollars will be weakened. And if the fiat system is weak, and we expect crypto to thrive, right? And then I'm gonna share some metrics that I use. Wait a minute. So let me switch back to some of my work here. Wait a minute. Okay. So we're gonna look at the that one. This one is interesting. So I'm gonna give a brief introduction to this metric. It's actually called the stablecoin supply ratio, and what it does is actually measuring the proxy of the purchasing power of the USD relative to Bitcoin's market cap. So if you look at the chart, so historically, previously we had three red signals flashing, which indicated that the stablecoin supply ratio has reached its upper boundary, which is calculated by 2 standard deviation. And then by then, we would expect some selling pressure coming ahead, and right now we just flashed, and which means that it's just a piece of reference for traders out there. Then we might be seeing some selling pressure coming ahead, as the stablecoin supply is now reaching the upper boundary. The SSR oscillator will coming to the top, and if you're interested, you can go to Glassnode. It's actually accessible on Glassnode. It measures the purchasing power of all stablecoins combined relative to Bitcoin's total market cap, and it's just one of the useful indicators that I use to assess, to evaluate the current market trend. And another metric that's very interesting and very helpful is the reverse repo. So actually, I've talked about this metric a lot of times before. I'm just gonna go through this. So wait a minute, let me share a new screen. Okay. Here. So bi-weekly report. Oh yeah, very lovely. So wait a minute, I'm getting there very quickly. Okay. So can you see my screen now? Am I sharing? No, new share. So wait, here. Yeah, let's get to that. So wait. Let me just get to the liquidity model very quickly. So I'm sorry, it's very slow. Here, yeah. So this one, the inverted reverse repo indicator, that one I think is very useful, because the reverse repo is an instrument used by the Federal Reserve to absorb excess liquidity from the market. So when reverse repo goes up, crypto and other risky assets tend to go down. It's just a reasonable relationship between the two, where money is being extracted from the market, being pulled away by the Federal Reserve and parked by the Federal Reserve, and then the risk sentiment in the market will be weaker. So vice versa. And right now we can see the reverse repo going down. So the inverted reverse repo going up. And that's actually a sign of bullishness, a sign of strength for the crypto markets. And then we're going to look at the real net liquidity model. This one also very useful. It takes into account the excess liquidity lies in the Federal Reserve balance sheet. I talked about it in the previous episode, and also I published a recent research paper, explaining how this works. So if you're interested, just visit Huobi Research and then look at the report. That reports viewing Bitcoin's price in the lens of liquidity modeling. That's one of the helpful reports that can help you assess the current market trend. And now we are seeing a little bit U-turn here. So chill out. It doesn't mean the market's gonna stumble, right? It's just a little divergence here. It means that we might be seeing a little bit of selling pressure coming ahead as the macro liquidity is not looking very bullish right now. But let's see. All depends on the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision later on. So I'm going to pass the floor to Benz, and let's talk about what market is expecting towards tonight's interest rate decision. Okay, Benz, will you take over?
Sure. I'll just share my screen for a quick while. Okay, so that's a quick update on the current, interest futures. You guys can access to this via investing.com. It's free for all. So currently, since yesterday, everything has been trading sideways for most indices. So one of the reasons why is due to 2 nights or maybe the FOMC decision in 6 hours time. So a lot of market participants are waiting for that for the news. So if we look at current expectation compared to like last month, actually right now the probability of a 25 basis point hike is around 100%. Compared to last month is around 67%. So everybody, almost 100% of the market is expecting a 25 basis point. Hence, we actually see from the past few days or past 1 week, the market has varied a bit. So I wouldn't say it's not 25 basis point high is 100%, but that is almost there, unless something will triggers the Fed decision to actually hike up 50 basis points. Next is on some updates on the current US yield curve. So currently, the blue line shows the current curve. So we see that actually compared to last month, which is the green color curve, which is higher, which is more inverted. This would imply that recession is there's a higher chance of recession in the coming maybe few months, but this is not the hard rule, but this is just an indicator. Next on the economic activities. So for this week, we would expect we're looking at the Euro CPI, which came in better than expected earlier today. Next is on later the ADP non-farm employment, which is in around 22 minutes time or 20 minutes time. Expectation of 178,000 compared to last month 235,000. There's a lot of jobs data this week, which is this Friday as well, which is the non-farm payroll, that's the standard, as well as the US unemployment rate. So actually, but however, the most important is to later the FOMC decision later on, which is 25 basis point hike. However,
yes. Yeah. So basically, the market already priced in 25 basis point, right? So if Powell drops us 50 basis point, he's going to nuke the market, right? And then let's hope it won't happen, right? Hopefully, we can cover the statistics in next week's episode.
Yeah, I think it's highly unlikely because, however, but based on like previous job data, US jobs market or labor market has been really strong. It's sort of the kind of soft landing that the Fed wanted, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's pay attention to the data coming ahead tonight.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And one last thing is earlier this week there's this PCE data which came in better than expected. So we previous episodes we actually want we want the PCE data to actually slow down, the growth in PCE to actually slow down as well as the hourly wages. So
for your information, they're changing the calculation method for the PCE as well. So it makes economists to calculate this forecast uh, in high flexibility, and this is a little bit tricky. So I haven't really looked into how they changed the metrics, how they changed the calculation of PCE. Probably can talk about it next week.
Yeah, I think the PCE is something that we should actually look at more in depth as well, because we still want the indicators that the Fed they use. So another one is the US hourly earnings. We see that the past few months has been slowing down. This is one of the reasons why the inflation has been actually slowed down as well. So PCE and hourly basis, we have to look at that as well. So lastly is the unemployment. So it will be later this week, which is 33.6%, which is still within the KPIs of the Fed. Yeah, that's all for macro. So we move on to the next one.
Yeah, thanks, friends. And last but not least, let's look at the chart of AVAX. And I'm not sure if Daniel's looking at the price action of AVAX all the time, because he's from the Ava Labs. Hey, Daniel, do you think the price of AVAX matter to you? Do you look at it all the time? It's just a side question.
Yeah, I try not to. I'm a big fan of the technology here. That's why I joined. And so my opinion is, in the long run, it'll speak for itself. So right now we're just in this build mode without looking at price action or anything like that.
I see. Yeah, it's better to have a longer vision. If you very bullish on the project, you're gonna stay for long. But in terms of recent market price action, it's been doing very well, right? And almost 100%. It's actually made 100%, and that's very amazing. It outperformed other tokens, a lot of other tokens. Also outperformed Bitcoin as well. And are there any news that triggered the recent bull run? Actually, because I haven't really got time to look into what's up with AVAX. Probably can just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I think crypto as a whole has been doing really well. After January 1st of this year. And we are part of that kind of ecosystem. So it makes sense that Avalanche has done well, from a price action perspective. We have launched and announced several partnerships that we can get into, probably through the discussions here today. That has probably helped us from a price action perspective. But I think, culminating the two together, announcements of working with folks like Intane Capital Markets, who we announced yesterday, and AWS, so Amazon's web services business, who we announced about two weeks ago now, have definitely helped us from a price action perspective.
Yeah. Thanks, Daniel. You're gonna talk about it later on. So let's just dive into our main discussion today. Daniel is going to educate us about what's up with AVAX in 2023, and also talk about the landscape of AVAX among other competitors in this ecosystem. So Ben's, hey, I'm passing forward to you. Would you like to just kickstart the conversation with Daniel?
Okay, sure. So actually, right now we have to I think everybody wants to know what's going on with the currency of AVAX, in terms of on-chain metrics, how's the TVL going, how's the transaction volumes good, on-chain metrics, how is everything going on then?
Sure. Yeah. As a whole, I think chains have been doing well on chain. Folks have in 2023 gravitated to utilizing more on-chain DeFi for swapping or on-chain use cases that they historically may have done on an exchange over the last few years. And there's a variety of reasons for that, right? Crypto as a whole started off as more of an on-chain community, and I think we're kind of seeing a renaissance, so to speak, of that. And so as a whole, we're seeing a lot more uses in DeFi come about, a lot more interest in participating in on-chain activities. And so with that said, Avalanche year to date has been doing really well on chain from a metrics perspective. Right now we're about a top 6 TVL L1, which is something we're really proud of, and something we're striving for to get to top 2 or even top 1, at the end of the day. So right now from a DeFi perspective, we boast about 920 million TVL, as discussed or as stated by DeFi Llama. That doesn't include stable coins or anything else. That's purely within our DeFi landscape. As I mentioned, that's about top 6. We've seen a ton of on-chain increase in activity over the last 14 days, which is exciting to us. That's, again, probably for a variety of reasons. People are getting more and more familiar with the Avalanche ecosystem as we've announced partnerships with AWS and Intane. They're also probably gearing up for the USP launch on Platypus, which is a stable swap on Avalanche. Platypus is launching a stable coin called USP that's going to be fully collateralized or partly collateralized by liquidity pools. So if you think of like LPing a DAI in USDC with an LP pool, it's not very capital efficient. You're earning yield for people trading on that pool. You are earning incentives for Platypus. But in reality, if everything works well, it should be trading at pay. And so with that, Platypus is creating a model that you can collateralize that and mint a stable called USP. And then you can take that USP and really have it, do what you want with it. You could leverage, you could farm it, you could do several other things. And so we're excited for that to launch. I believe the announcement or the launch date is going to be live within the week. So it'll be a new Avalanche native stablecoin that we're excited to see kind of how it grows and how it performs. This is in line with, in my opinion, with the overall market sentiment of newer stablecoins coming. Ava, announced that they're going to be launching their stablecoin called GHO. Curve also announced that they're going to be launching their new stablecoin. Thankfully, I think Platypus is going to beat them. As I said, it's going to be live within the next 6 days. So excited to see kind of how that new model works, because all of a sudden you're going to have newer protocols launching stablecoins for themselves. And so there's going to be a ton of interdependency between them. So that's going to be the story of 2023: on-chain use cases, on-chain stablecoins, on-chain data. So I think Avalanche is primed for that. One thing I want to speak about is the Bitcoin bridge to Avalanche. So about 6 months ago, Ava Labs launched the Bitcoin bridge, which allowed a user to take Bitcoin from the Bitcoin network and move it over to Avalanche to utilize that within DeFi, or actually do something with Bitcoin, right, that historically you haven't been able to do on the Bitcoin network. Now, there are other versions of that, like Wrap Bitcoin and several others, but the redemption for them are less than ideal. I believe for some of them, you actually have to call the custodian and ask to redeem it instead of doing it totally online. And so we saw, an opportunity there for this to be built on Avalanche and built by us. And so we rolled out BTCB, which is the Avalanche native version of Bitcoin. So a user right now can download the core wallet, bridge their Bitcoin from the Bitcoin network to Avalanche and utilize that within DeFi. Currently, I think we have the highest yields for Bitcoin. And so we're seeing a ton of on-chain growth. In fact, just today, let me pull up the stats real quick. Just today, we actually hit an all-time high. And so of total bridged assets of Bitcoin onto Avalanche. Right now, I think we're sitting at about $140 million worth of US dollars of Bitcoin, BTCB, bridged on Avalanche in just 6 months, which is exciting. So that's give or take about like $6,000. So 6,000 Bitcoin on the Avalanche network through this bridge. Again, this is just in 6 months. So we're excited to see, by year end, if our thesis is right and there's more on-chain use cases, where this goes and kind of how the Bitcoin natives participate in DeFi. Because in all honesty, it's probably a whole new world for them, right?
Yeah. Hey, one question for you, Daniel. I'm a little bit curious about the on-chain data of the BTCB on Avalanche. Is it available on any other metrics source provider, or is it private now?
No, let me drop a link to the chat here.
Sure.
A community member created a BTCB Dune analytics board.
I think some of our audience might be interested in, digging into the on-chain data about the BTCB, right? So you just drop it on the chat room, and then I'm going to share my screen and share with our audience.
Sure.
Oh, there. Yeah, lovely. Doing analytics. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like over the past, I mean, just you mentioned the 6 months where start bridging the BTC over to Avalanche, but I think most of the, I mean, the most increase is over the past 1 month. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't think it's over the past 1 month, so to speak, as you can see in this chart in the top right there.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a steady growth, from like
definitely.
just a movement perspective. But I do think, people have become, as people get more and more comfortable with using the bridging from Bitcoin to Avalanche, we should see sizable growth. And as we get more use cases, right? Something that I'm excited for is potentially a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin. Again, so this is something that Bitcoin OGs and Bitcoin natives don't have any experience with. But once they realize what they can do with their BTC on a chain that supports smart contracts, the world's really their oyster. And so I expect that chart to continue to grow at a steady pace as people, again, get more comfortable with the idea of bridging, get more comfortable with the idea of redemption, things like that. So we're still in its infancy, but we're very proud of its growth thus far.
Yeah, very nice to see the steady growth you guys achieving, and also the recent spikes in Avalanche bridging BTCB, and that's also some encouraging data. BTCB and Avalanche DeFi. What's this chart about? What this chart tells us, Daniel?
Yeah, so as you can see, people are hunting for yields, and Aave right now, I think, boasts the highest yields for BTCB. And so people are looking to utilize the Bitcoin, deposit it, gain yield from it, and that's why you're seeing a pretty large uptick in Aave. As I mentioned previously, I think we have the highest yields for Bitcoin, and so people are hungry for that, and the charts speak volumes.
Okay, so these are the use cases for BTCB and different protocols. People are depositing BTCB in Aave, Banshee, and Joe, right? These protocols. Okay, very cool, man.
So, and one question for the stablecoin, which is the USP, right? So you mentioned about Aave is coming up with GHO, Curve is coming up with own stablecoin. I think Cardano is coming with the DJED. They are also native stablecoin as well. It's like, is there any way USP maybe give 1 or 2 reasons why USP is in a way better than them?
Yeah, well, I mean, so USP as it stands currently is going to be Avalanche native, right? And so I think what you're going to be able to do on Avalanche right out of the gate with a stablecoin that comes out earlier is going to be a lot more than a stablecoin that takes a few months to roll out relatively. And so we're excited for it to be up and running, and then for use cases to already be spun up, whether that mean leverage trading, whether that mean, potentially using it to collateralize more USP to take out specific positions, or being more capital efficient in terms of how you receive yield, right? You can potentially re-collateralize the USP within pools to mint more USP or more stable coins for higher yield, effectively like leverage yield trading that was very popular, during the DeFi summer. So I think it's going to be a race, so to speak, to get the first one out there, and then use cases to be built around that. I envision, in this world where there are other stable coins built by protocols, that there are central hubs. So on Avalanche, USP is going to be, Avalanche is going to be that hub. For Aave, it's likely going to be Ethereum. For Curve, it's likely going to be Ethereum. You're likely going to have a stable coin that's native, to Arbitrum and Optimism and Polygon, built in very similar models. But hopefully they can be bridged over and utilized in a fashion that allows for better growth.
See, thank you, Daniel. And one more question, and I would like to ask, how do you view the landscape of AVAX among your competitors? Let's say maybe Near, maybe Ethereum, in 2023.
Yeah, I believe in a multi-chain world. Just as there are many different cloud providers like Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, AWS, there's going to be many different blockchains that people prefer or utilize. We don't live in a world where one chain is going to eat all and be all. there are going to be several different chains, and I think Avalanche is going to be one of them. That's why I'm working here, working at Ava Labs, right? So what I see and how we are going to differentiate ourselves are really through the main thing is going to be subnetworks, right? Subnets. So if you think about how institutions are going to utilize DeFi, it's going to be very hard for them to do it in the current landscape, right? You can't imagine Goldman Sachs trading against the curve pool because they have no idea who's on the other end or who's LPing in that pool. It could be, a malicious actor or somebody that's on the OFAC list. And so for their jurisdictions, they're not allowed to utilize DeFi. Avalanche creates an environment or can create an environment where they can be comfortable in trading. So it's Avalanche subnets, which are basically blockchains that utilize the Avalanche consensus, that are very nimble infrastructure pieces that people can, change the VMs, can change pre-compiles that allow for higher throughput or whatever it may be, but will live as a separate blockchain on the Avalanche network. We're very excited for that because all of a sudden you can implement compliance, you can implement KYC, you can implement regulatory aspects into the chain that allow it to be used in a more institutional and enterprise perspective. We made an announcement, I believe about a year ago, about the institutional DeFi subnet. We are, working rapidly on that. That is going to be effectively a playground for institutions to get comfortable with utilizing DeFi. They are going to be able to, complete a trade, do a loan, whatever it may be that we take for granted, utilizing the main chain, but they just can't utilize right now. The reason why they're going to be able to do that is because KYC, AML, and compliance is embedded into the underlying blockchain. So they're not worried about who they're trading with or trading against. They know that they're all accredited investors or institutions that have been properly vetted. This way, they're going to be able to get their systems up and running. They're going to be able to get their finance teams up to date with, how to track and how to utilize Web3 in a fashion that I guess we, as normal users, take for granted. Just recently, or I believe about 24 hours ago, we announced a partnership with Intane Capital Markets, who's going to be launching a subnet on Avalanche. Let me pull up some stats here about Intane. So Intane is basically a structured products platform in the traditional finance space. And they're building a tokenized platform on Avalanche for asset-backed securities. You can think of that as like a mortgage. You can think of that as like a car loan. That'll all be traded on an Avalanche subnet. And the reason they chose that is because they can embed that compliance and KYC aspect of things. So we're very excited for Intane and kind of similar names and structures to be built on Avalanche that just allow more people to be comfortable with Web3, more people to be using Web3 and grow kind of the crypto industry together.
Thanks, Daniel.
So just something about Intane, does Intane is Intane a traditional finance business? Is it a company or is it a project or protocol? Like, does it have its own token?
Yeah, so it's going to be a traditional, it's a traditional finance business that's going to be moving onto the blockchain.
I see.
I can't speculate too much on what they have upcoming, but we're very excited for the volume they're going to bring and for what they're going to build in terms of that security token, asset-backed securities marketplace. We did a pretty big press release 24 hours ago. I encourage the community to go read up on it to learn more about Intane because I think it's going to be very relevant as more institutions come onto the blockchain.
Yeah. So apart from this partnership, you also mentioned the partnership with Amazon Cloud, right? And would you like to dive deeper into that partnership and probably what could possibly happen?
Yeah, sure. So about 2 weeks ago, we announced a partnership with AWS, who tapped Ava Labs to work with them on bringing enterprises and government use cases on chain. You guys know who AWS is. They're one of the biggest cloud infrastructure providers in the world, and you can imagine the Rolodex they have. And so for them to choose Ava Labs and Avalanche as a blockchain to build and help build this infrastructure out. It means a lot to us and something that we're excited to do with them. So, we're going to start off small. This means AWS supporting Avalanche native projects with technical support, with grants, with things like that. And then additionally working with their developer community to build products on Avalanche. So we're excited to work with them on hackathons, in which AWS is going to be a pretty big sponsor, in which they're bringing their Web 2 native folks, Web 2 builders, Web 2 constituents onto more of a Web 3 mindset and blockchain. Now, this is going to get more into the weeds, but from an infrastructure perspective, AWS is working very closely with our team on node infrastructure, on support for subnets. So when you want to validate the Intane subnet or a gaming subnet, AWS is going to be working with you, giving you kind of a white glove experience to support that infrastructure out. In addition, without giving too much away, in addition to kind of working with us around those government and enterprise use cases.
The partnership with AWS also helps you guys gain more exposure to over 150 more countries, and that would be massive. The flow, and also so right now AWS customers could they possibly deploy their own maybe products on Avalanche subnets with Amazon's platform?
As it stands right now on AWS, you can deploy one-click nodes. Now, there is a technical component to it for a user, but the majority of it is abstracted away, and they can actually deploy nodes that validate the Avalanche network pretty easily. Now, in the future, right, as we work with AWS, they're going to be able to deploy one-click nodes that validate specific subnets. So if you wanted to validate the Intane subnet, you could do that hopefully with one click on the AWS platform.
Okay.
So, however, AWS is still a subscription-based model, right? So, for you to run a node or become a validator, you still have to subscribe to AWS, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I believe that you have an operational cost. It would be the same as running a validator on your own, except AWS has their own cost structure.
Right. So they provide you the computing power and everything. You just have to account with them. Yeah.
Correct.
And one more thing is there's also a collaboration with Shopify earlier this month. Last month. So is there an NFT strategy going on in Ava Labs?
Yeah, there's a big NFT strategy going on here. We just hired Dominic Carbonaro to kind of help build that out. So right now, Avalanche, we've been behind on NFT because we haven't had a team specifically dedicated to it, but we've hired a team now and we're growing that vertical pretty quickly. Trader Joe, which is an AMM that was built on Avalanche, has also created kind of an NFT marketplace that's seeing a ton of volume. We've also integrated with OpenSea not too long ago. That's going to be driving a ton of users that are familiar with the OpenSea environment and UI UX onto Avalanche. But one thing I'm really excited for is gaming. Right? At Avalanche, we're very excited for AAA rated games to launch. Historically, I think in crypto, we've seen click to earn games that all you're doing is simply clicking to earn a token or clicking to do an action. Now, this is not reminiscent to any games I've played, but it was a start to this trend. At Avalanche, there are 3 big games launching within the year that we're very excited about. One is Shrapnel, which is a FPS shooter. You can think of it like Call of Duty. The other is Gunzilla, which is not open world, but is a battle royale FPS. And the last is Ascenders, which is a MOBA. You can think of it like a RuneScape with a better engine. So these are real games built by studios that are going to be launching on the blockchain with an aspect of NFT trading, with an aspect of an underlying token or in-game currency involved, something that you enjoy playing because it's a good game and not because you're earning a token or not because you're trying to see a yield. So this, in my opinion, is going to tick a ton of boxes in terms of NFT volume, right? If all of a sudden you could tell me when I was big into gaming that I could trade CSGO skins on chain, I would be very excited about that, because all of a sudden there's this aspect of redemption to what I do in this video game. And so I think we're going to see a ton of volume get pushed through that onto Avalanche. A big reason these games are choosing Avalanche, if I'm being honest with you, is again that subnet infrastructure, right? If you're going to see a closed economy like game that have in-game NFTs, that have in-game tokens, it's a lot of transactions, and so what they've been doing is launching this on a subnet. We saw that with Cribata, which was a click-to-earn game that launched about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. We saw that with DeFi Kingdoms, which was a game that was on Harmony that had an aspect of DeFi included. They had their own economy. They moved it to a subnet on Avalanche. These 3 games that I mentioned will all be on a subnet powered by their own currency. And we'll bring a ton of NFT volume, we'll bring a ton of users that haven't historically been crypto natives onto the blockchain without even realizing they're on the blockchain. So we're excited about that, and that should definitely see increased NFT volume and increased usage across the board.
Yeah, I'm excited for you as well, because personally I'm a gamer as well, and I haven't seen really like a big like power game that I'm really interested in to play on chain, right? So yeah. I'm excited to actually wait for the games that you mentioned earlier. And okay, do you have
wait a second. One of these games, actually, can you drop us links below in chat box?
Yeah. I was just about to do it.
I just wanted to have a look. Let's see. Because GameFi definitely may be another, blow off top topic narrative in 2023 if the bull run resumes. I'm just going to look there. This one is shop now.
So they've got a full gameplay and trailer that you guys can watch. You can read the white paper. Yeah. So I dropped 2 others in the chat as well.
So it's like Call of Duty. Looks like Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, it's got that FPS shooter. That again, normal users that play video games don't realize, hopefully, that they're actually utilizing the blockchain for this.
Okay, so they're incorporating some of the NFTs into the gameplay, into the game. Let's see, that's very cool. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Thanks for dropping the link. This is Shop New. So.
Sure. I dropped the 2. Yeah, I dropped the 2 others in the chat as well, Ascenders and Benzilla.
Yeah, let me check that out. Ascenders. This one looks like a bit nice.
Yeah, they have a live demo, or they had a live demo that our community or the community could play. I believe that sunset as they get geared up for the full game experience. But the demo was fantastic.
I agree. Demo is fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah. Are they using like Unreal Engine 5 for this like graphics?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think each game has a different engine. So I'm not entirely sure which engine each of them are using. So I can't comment too much on that.
All right. Okay. The graphics is good though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a problem in 2022 that these games which incorporate the blockchain are not very appealing to players, to gamers, right. And that's one of the problems in GameFi, because ultimately,
I think the problem stems from would a gamer want to play the game, or are they only playing the game for the NFT or the token? And I think we are crafting a narrative with these games and others that will be launching or will be announced around gaming comes first. Blockchain is just a tertiary layer that kind of you're abstracting things away. But a user can buy NFTs or redeem tokens or whatever it may be within the game or outside the game within DeFi. So overall, this is going to be kind of the start of, I think, of a very big trend of gaming on Avalanche and gaming within crypto, right? We expect to see a ton of traditional studios, see these games launch, see the traction they have, and look to engage and kind of grow from that.
Yeah, because personally, I have been looking at the whole gaming sector on on blockchain. So there's a lot of new things that's coming out. If you look at Gala as well, they have a lot of upcoming new games as well as they bought over gaming studio as well. So this is one sector that I think the audience should actually look at and actually explore this area. And also, I think one question that I think the most important thing for GameFi is a sustainable economy. I think that's the most important part, because if a game does, like, tokenomics is not sound enough, the longevity of the game does not last, even though how great the game is, right?
Yeah, 100%. We have I'm just one of a big team at Ava Labs. We have DeFi folks that will sit down with these games and other projects building on Avalanche and work with them on tokenomics. We get very hands-on with projects that are looking to be hands-on. We'll support them not only with technical support and kind of commercial support, but around like the frameworks, because we've been in the industry for a while and we can talk them through that. So a lot of these games have been working very closely with us around things like that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Daniel. And I think I just picked one question from the comment section. I think is this is quite interesting. So one of the audience asked the question for Daniel: what are the key differences in the underlying consensus mechanism between the Avalanche network and other decentralized platforms like Ethereum and EOS? And how does it affect the overall security and scalability of the AVAX network? It's a bit technical. Yeah.
It's a little bit technical, but I can summarize it for you. So the Avalanche consensus is totally novel. It's the third ever consensus to be written, really. You historically have had classical consensus, which has been around since like the 80s. That's what traditional firms use, right? So if you think of Visa or a bank, if I am sending a deposit to a bank, they use classical consensus to actually verify that transaction has gone through. It is not very decentralized, but it's very fast. EOS uses classical consensus. Cosmos uses a version of classical consensus. A lot of these newer L1s use a version of classical consensus. They may, change the wording of how it's structured. They may call it proof of history or something else. But for a lack of a better word, it is a derivation of classical consensus. Along came Satoshi Nakamoto several years later, who claimed the Nakamoto consensus, right? That is very, very decentralized, but not very fast in terms of finality, right? A transaction on the Bitcoin network or Ethereum, when it was proof of work, could take upwards of 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes even longer, right, on the Bitcoin network. Our CEO at Ava Labs, Emin Gün Sirer, was a notable computer scientist. He spent his life in academia. He was at Cornell doing teaching there. And two of his PhD students, Kevin Seknicki, Ted Yin, and Professor Gün, worked together on creating this Avalanche consensus and commercialized it into the Avalanche blockchain that's now open source for folks to build on and use. So the Avalanche consensus at its core level basically subsamples validator sets at a very high speed. This allows for a ton of validators to actually be involved in the consensus, and that's why at Avalanche we boast over, I think, 1,500 validators for an L1 and growing. It's infinitely scalable. As it scales, the faster it gets, and the more secure it gets. And that's why partnerships like the AWS announcement, that's why partnerships like the Alibaba announcement about a month ago was very exciting to us, because it's going to scale the blockchain in a very decentralized way and allow for new users to kind of be a part of that. So at its core, the underlying consensus is entirely new. It's totally different than EOS, Ethereum, or anything else. And we're excited to kind of see it grow and become more decentralized as these more traditional players get into the game.
That's great. Thanks, Daniel. Let's see down the comment section. Let's see if our audience have any more questions for Daniel about AVAX. Maybe Daniel, can you drop us a few important highlights of AVAX in 2023? What should we pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, gaming is a big one.
Gaming.
Yeah, so pay attention to these games. Follow them on Twitter. Again, that's Shrapnel, Senders, and Gunzilla. 2023 is going to be a big year for gaming on Avalanche. I can follow up with you guys, async that you can then send to the community. But follow them on Twitter, keep up with them. We're excited for them to launch. It's going to usher kind of a new era of gaming and GameFi to crypto that we haven't seen yet. And one thing that we're really excited about 2023 is Avalanche wrap messaging. We didn't get too into the weeds here, but I can chat about it because I think it's going to change how, again, people view Avalanche and what you can do on Avalanche. So Avalanche wrap messaging, AWM for short, is a very low level coding layer that allows for messaging between subnets to subnets or subnets to C-chain or the main network. You can think of it very similar to Cosmos IBC, just for this discussion point. So you can effectively use it as a bridging layer where you're not wrapping tokens on one end and then minting tokens on another end. It is a message from a subnet to a subnet or subnet to a C-chain. You can utilize this to communicate with a smart contract on another chain. So let's say you're on the Intane subnet and you want to communicate with the C-chain. You could do that entirely through AWM. And so that's going to be, up and running, I think, within the next 4 or 5 months. So in this world, you can imagine a subnet being built on one end, but having actually the liquidity on the main chain. So you can think of the Ben subnet, where it's all the Ben's gaming platforms, but the liquidity and the NFTs are on the main network for anybody to trade against, to buy, and with AWM can communicate seamlessly in a trustless fashion to the Ben's chain. And so that's something I would look out for. Subnet to subnet communication is already live with AWM, but subnet to C-chain is something that I'm very excited about because all of a sudden that takes it to a whole new level, right?
Right. Very cool. Thanks, Daniel. And do you have any other questions for Daniel?
Actually, I want to ask a very simple question. It might sound stupid, but Avalanche. I know Avalanche Network has 3 different chains. So it's X chain, C chain, and P chain. So what are the differences?
Yeah, good question. So at a high level, P chain is a chain that coordinates validation. So if you're spinning up a validator, you're going to be spinning it up on the P chain. That's its sole purpose, is to coordinate validation and for validators to effectively have a home. C-chain is the smart contracts chain. That's probably what you utilize. That's what I utilize the most. That's a place where you have smart contracts. It's an EVM chain that's able to communicate with Ethereum and Polygon and all the other chains we're familiar with. That's the majority of our users. That's where BTCP is. That's where our smart contracts are. That's where Platypus, Trader Joe, and all the other familiar names are. And so that's the chain that people are most comfortable with. It's the EVM chain of choice. The X chain is a DAG. It's optimized for high throughput payments. It's not very utilized just yet, but we've got several things in the works to hopefully optimize it to make it more user friendly. But I wouldn't worry too much about that just yet. So those are the key differences. Yeah. Now, Benz, hopefully in a year, you're gonna come to me and say, there's 1,000 different subnets. What's the difference between 1,000 different subnets? And so we might have to spend a little bit longer, but right now, those are the main 3 ones.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Johnny, do you have any more questions for Dan?
I think we have already gone through a lot of questions and very good conversation with Daniel. And
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. I really appreciate the time. Looking forward to working with you guys and Huobi in the future. Again, pay attention to Avalanche. Follow those games on Twitter. Be up to date with AWM. We're excited about several things, but those are the main things that interest me as a gamer, as somebody that's in DeFi, and somebody that's also part of the community, but works at Ava Labs.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm part of the listing team also. So if there's any new launch or there anything upcoming, you can actually drop me a DM and maybe you can discuss further. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's come to our last part. I have a little bit of marketing message for our audience. So let me just show a bit, Daniel. So there we go. Right now, Huobi is launching a market maker recruitment plan, and we have some rewards for any referees and also inviters for new market makers, and also we have rewards for invitees. So make sure you check out the planned program on our news update page. Yeah, and then we also have enabled the SSV network deposit and trading. So right now you can deposit SSV tokens onto Huobi, so it's now available. And if you want to trade SSV, or if you are interested in SSV, go check out this news update on Huobi page, Huobi News here. So also we have some earning programs for BBC, because BBC was one of the winners in our Prime Vote, and we are giving out good news out there. So make sure you check out this piece of news as well in our Huobi support page. Okay. So last but not least, just if you're interested in digging deep into research into the crypto, check out the Huobi Research page, and just publish new research viewing Bitcoin's spread in the lens of macro liquidity modeling, and that's a good one for you to evaluate current trend. And that's it. And oh, I didn't share screen, right?
Yep.
Damn. I'm just gonna do it a little bit. Okay. So SSV token listing, and also we have the new market maker plan rewards program for all of our referrers out there, and also Huobi Research page. Check out this report. Bitcoin's price in the lens of macro liquidity modeling. This one's important for evaluating current trend, market trend. So that's it for today. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank Daniel for joining us today. Very much enjoyed the conversation. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great to be here. I'm looking forward to having a new conversation in 2024.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Yeah.
My pleasure. So yeah.
Yeah.
You go.